Okay, like every year, Oscars arrive, like nominations, and like every year, it's pretty controversial. I think that compared to the last couple of years, this is much less like, political correct Oscars. Like that's the thing that many people like had a problem with Oscars like last couple of years. But there is equally big problem for me this year, and that is the problem of like five movies getting 10 nominations, and like many great movies being overlooked. And honestly, like these movies are basically Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Joker, 1917, and like obviously, like they deserved many of these nominations, but really, like for some of them, I don't really think they deserved it that much. I'll start with the writing, like adapting the original screenplay. I don't have really that much, like that big of a problem here. Joker for me, like the weakest aspect of that movie was honestly like the screenplay and like adapted screenplay. Like there's only literally the name Joker here, but nevertheless, I felt like that movie was too pretentious in trying to like just put the message in your head. Like when they talk about like society did this to me. I really hate that, but there are many worse categories this year than that. Like for the visual effects, I think this is all right. Lion King was a terrible movie, but it had good visual effects. And The Irishman, that's kind of where I have the problem because although like uh, actors looked good, like the aging looked very well. Simply, don't think they understood that like when face is young, the body is still like old, and it is apparent when, especially with the De Niro when he is like punching this one baker, like he looks like the 70-year-old man punching a baker. Sound editing, mixing, nothing really special there. But the thing that where I got a pretty big problem was directing. Like the Todd Phillips did very well in Joker, and like as I said, like the screenplay was actually the worst part of that movie. But like Oscar nomination, like really, I think that simply there are better directors this year. Honestly, like Greta Gerwig and Robert Eggers come like in mind this year. Like this is the beginning of the Lighthouse snubbing. Honestly, like first with this directing, because I think he did very good job. Like honestly as well, like Lighthouse's editing, like it was out of this world, and it did not get nominated. Then the costume design, like very well, except The Irishman. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, great costumes. Little Woman, great. Joker, like probably the most iconic costume of this year. But The Irishman, I felt like this was basically the Casinos and Goodfellas wardrobe, and Scorsese was just like, like we could use one of the like two or three of those. And like, do you remember really like the costumes from Irishman? No, because it is stereotypical gangster like costumes. So yeah, like not really. Cinematography, like Lighthouse, thanks God, like at least one nomination. Joker, like one of the best aspects of that film for me was cinematography, like especially like that last scene with Murray in a show. That was such a nice blend of colors. But The Irishman honestly was ugly movie, and there is no other way to say it. I think that the biggest problem honestly was the digital cameras that they used. I feel that gangster movies, especially like they must have this dirty feel that kind of you can't achieve with digital cameras. I think that like they had to use digital cameras because of the aging, but I simply don't think. But I think that it affected the cinematography. Everything looked kind of bland for me, and I don't really think that Irishman deserved it. But you see, like Joker, Irishman, these are some movies that for me this year didn't deserve some categories. Like for the animated, I didn't watch many animated movies honestly this year. Like actually none of those. Well, so I'll skip that category. For the actors in supporting role as well, like I think this is all right. I think this is all right. I didn't watch all these movies, but we'll see who will win there. And before I'll skip some categories, but because I want to go back to it at the end of this video, actors in the leading role like Jonathan Pryce. With Two Popes, I didn't watch that movie, so I can't really speak. For all others, I think it's alright. And I must now go to supporting actor. I don't think that I have in a long time been so, like, I don't know, angry because one category in Oscars. And supporting actors for me, like, my goodness, like, okay, I'll start it. Like, Joe Pesci definitely deserves it for The Irishman. Al Pacino, He simply does not. Like, he was good in that movie. It wasn't as good, you know. Like, it simply was like, it is Al Pacino, it is Martin Scorsese movie, it's Irishman, you know, and as well as Tom Hanks, because A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, it is a good movie, but Tom Hanks is good in it, but that's about it. It should like cheer for the most groundbreaking and excellent performances directing in some category in that year, and simply Tom Hanks and Al Pacino were not that. Brad Pitt, I'm totally fine with him being here. Anthony Hopkins, as I said, Two Popes, I haven't seen it, but The Two Popes for me at this point is kinda Oscar bait movie. I'm not saying it's bad, but simply it comes out in December with this biopic thing, and like, you know, like, I'll see. I don't want to talk about the movie that I didn't see, but simply Tom Hanks and Al Pacino, like, their existence here is for me like laughable. But honestly, like, the biggest problem for the man who wasn't here, freaking William Dafoe. Like, honestly, like, I saw like 5 videos of people before nominations talking about William Dafoe deserves this Oscar this year, and he didn't even get nominated. And we know why it is, like, because he's the Lighthouse is this strange Lovecraftian horror comedy drama, like, where people go mad and there are farts in it. But like, William Dafoe, my goodness, it was so good. Like, he was a scene stealer. He was a movie stealer. Like, he was the best aspect of the already great movie. And The Lighthouse, the snubs of The Lighthouse this year, it's like The Lighthouse was one of the most memorable movies of this year. Like, and I'm talking objectively, like, not just that I loved it, but many people loved it. Like, I just want you to create the picture in your mind how important this movie was. Like, it was a special experience, and one of this year's like most unique, like, it was definitely the most unique experience and one of this year's best experiences when we talk about movies, up there with The Marriage Story and Parasite for me. But simply, like, him not getting nominated, it's just one of those sad stories about sci-fi or horror movies not getting nominated. I forgot also in like the actress in the leading role, Nayori. Sorry, I don't want to butcher her name, so I'll just look it up for a second. I watched the movie along. Lupita from Us, like in like, Us was like mixed bag of the movie, but Lupita in that movie was maybe my favorite female performance of this year, and her getting nominated, it's okay. Like, all these others are great. I didn't watch Harriet and Bombshell, but like, all these others are pretty good or great, but simply, like, Lupita didn't even have a chance. Even if she had been superior than all of this, she wouldn't get it, and we know it. And I'm now going to the best picture, and honestly, like, yeah, like, it is good, you know. Like, I would add a Lighthouse, obviously. And yeah, simply that's the problem I wanted to talk about. Like, simply Oscars must understand, like, there are many movies, and I'm really happy that The Parasite got recognition this year in many categories, other side of the best foreign movie. Sorry if I like misspelled that word, but like, I'm not English speaker. But I feel that this was pretty safe year, like too safe year for Oscars. Like, really, the supporting actor was the biggest for me problem this year, but in many other categories as well. So yeah, this is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye.